Chapter 1. A town where everyone knows your name. There are towns in America that feel like they exist outside of time. Maplewood, Ohio, was one of them. It had one main street with brick sidewalks, a single traffic light that locals joked was only there to confuse outsiders, and houses with front porches wide enough to sit and watch the world go by. In autumn, the town smelled like burning leaves and cinnamon. In winter, it smelled like pine trees and coffee drifting out of the only cafe on the corner. Emma Carter had lived there her entire life. At 29, she worked as the assistant manager of Maplewood's small public library, a quiet building with tall windows and shelves that creaked when you walked too fast. She loved the silence, the predictability, the way books made the world feel bigger, without forcing her to leave the town she both cherished and feared. People often asked her why she stayed. She never had a simple answer. Maybe it was her mother's grave in the small cemetery near the river. Maybe it was the way every memory she had was tied to these streets. Or maybe it was fear. Fear that if she left, she would lose the last pieces of herself that still felt whole. On a cold October morning, Emma unlocked the library doors just as the church bells rang 9 times. She didn't know it yet, but that morning would change her life forever. Chapter 2. The Man Who Came Back. Jacob Miller arrived in Maplewood the same day the first frost kissed the sidewalks. He drove an old pickup truck with a cracked windshield and out-of-state plates. People noticed immediately. They always did when someone new appeared. But Jacob wasn't exactly new. He was a ghost returning home. At 32, Jacob had the kind of face that looked like it had known both laughter and loss. His dark hair was slightly unkempt, his eyes tired but alert, like someone who never fully relaxed. He had left Maplewood at 18 with a scholarship, a duffel bag, and a promise to never look back. Life had other plans. After years in Chicago working construction, a failed engagement, and the slow collapse of a dream he never talked about, Jacob came back to take care of his father, whose health had begun to fail. The first place Jacob walked into after settling back was the library. Not because he loved books, he barely read anymore, but because it was warm, quiet, and familiar, and because Emma Carter was there. Chapter 3. A Familiar Stranger. Emma looked up from the front desk when the bell above the library door rang. Jacob stood there awkwardly, as if unsure whether he was allowed to exist in that space. For a moment their eyes met. Something flickered, recognition without memory. "Can I help you?" Emma asked, offering a polite smile. Jacob cleared his throat. "Yeah, I'm looking for something on local history. Maplewood, specifically." Emma tilted her head. "You're not from around here?" Jacob smiled softly. "I am, or I was." She nodded, already intrigued. A lot's changed, and somehow, nothing has. As she walked him to the history section, their conversation flowed easily. About the town, the old diner that burned down, the high school football team that never quite recovered after 2009. They laughed. Neither mentioned how natural it felt. Neither mentioned the strange comfort of standing beside someone who felt like home without explanation. Chapter 4. Slow-burning days. In small towns, relationships don't explode into existence. They simmer. Jacob began visiting the library more often. Sometimes he borrowed books. Sometimes he just sat at a table pretending to read while watching snow begin to fall outside. Emma started noticing the little things. how he always held doors open, how he spoke gently about his father, how his laughter sounded surprised, like he wasn't used to it anymore. They began walking together after the library closed, their breath visible in the cold air. They talked about dreams. Emma admitted she once wanted to be a writer. Jacob admitted he once wanted to build something that lasted. "What stopped you?" Emma asked one evening. Jacob hesitated. "Life." She nodded. "Yeah, same." Chapter 5. The First Kiss. It happened on Thanksgiving night. The town square was decorated with early Christmas lights, glowing softly under fresh snow. The air smelled like fireplaces and baked pies. They stood under the giant maple tree that gave the town its name. Jacob shifted nervously. "Emma, there's something I should probably say." She looked up at him, heart pounding. "Okay." "I don't know how long I'm staying," he said. "My dad's health, it's complicated, and I don't want to promise anything I can't give." Emma swallowed. "I'm not asking for promises." They stared at each other, the silence heavy, but not uncomfortable. Jacob leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. The kiss was soft, hesitant, and absolutely life-changing. Chapter 6. Love in the Small Things. Winter wrapped Maplewood in white. Emma and Jacob became inseparable, grocery shopping together, cooking simple meals, sitting on the couch watching old movies while snow tapped gently against the windows. They didn't talk about the future much. They didn't need to. Love lived in the present, in shared mugs of coffee, in the way Jacob fixed Emma's broken porch step, in the way she read aloud to him when his father fell asleep in the next room. For the first time in years, both of them felt safe. Chapter 7. The Tragedy No One Saw Coming. The call came on a freezing January morning. Emma was at work when her phone vibrated. "Jacob." She answered with a smile, until she heard his voice break. "My dad." He collapsed. "We're at the hospital." She left the library without locking her desk. By the time she arrived, it was too late. Jacob's father passed away quietly, surrounded by machines and unfinished words. Jacob didn't cry. Not then. Not for days. He moved through the world like a shadow, hollowed out by grief. Emma stayed. She held his hand. She cooked meals he barely touched. She sat with him in silence when words failed. But grief has a way of pulling people inward. And Jacob was slipping away. Chapter 8. The Breaking Point. One night, weeks later, Jacob packed a bag. Emma found him in the hallway. "What are you doing?" she asked, panic rising. "I can't stay," he said flatly. "Every corner of this town reminds me of him, of everything I lost." "What about us?" Emma whispered. Jacob closed his eyes. "That's the problem." He left before she could stop him. The truck disappeared down the same road he had once promised never to return on. Emma stood alone in the falling snow, heart shattered. Chapter 9. A Year of Silence. Spring came. Summer followed. Emma went through the motions. Work, home, sleep. The town noticed her sadness, but didn't know how to fix it. She stopped walking past the maple tree. She stopped believing in endings that weren't painful. Jacob never called. Until December. Chapter 10. The Letter. A handwritten letter arrived at the library. Emma recognized the handwriting immediately. "Emma, I left because I was afraid. Afraid that if I stayed, I would lose you the way I lost my father. I was wrong. Losing you hurt more. If you can forgive me, I'll be in Maplewood on New Year's Eve. If not, I'll understand. Jacob. Emma's hands trembled. She had loved him in silence for a year. Could she risk being hurt again? Chapter 11. New Year's Eve. Snow fell softly as the town gathered in the square. Lights twinkled. Music played. Laughter filled the air. Emma stood near the maple tree, heart racing. Then she saw him. Jacob looked older, wiser, hopeful. Their eyes met. He walked toward her slowly, as if afraid she might disappear. "I came home," he said quietly. "So did I," Emma replied. Chapter 12. A Christmas Miracle. They didn't rush. They talked, they cried, they forgave. That night, they sat at Emma's small dining table, candles glowing, snow drifting outside the window. A simple New Year's dinner. Roasted chicken, warm bread, 2 glasses of wine. The clock struck midnight. Jacob reached for her hand. "I want to build something that lasts, with you." Emma smiled through tears. "Then stay." He did. Epilogue. Under the same sky. Maplewood slept peacefully under fresh snow. 2 people who once feared love now welcomed it. Outside, fireworks lit the sky. Inside, a small-town love found its forever. And under the same quiet sky, a new year began, full of hope.